once again, episode 5 of the America's Army OPCast. I am Dev Tots. What's going on, Grub?
How's it going, Tots?
Man, it's going good. We got a big crowd in here today. With me is Dev Nicholai. What's up, man?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
And we've also got the Zuko.
What's up?
Just for anyone who's joining us for the first time, I'm going to give you a rundown. I'm Tots. I'm the QA lead. Grub over here is a programmer. Nicholai is an environmental artist. And Zuko is the Lord of the Recycle Bots and also an environmental artist.
Lord of the Psychobots first.
Yeah, primarily. Yeah, definitely. Now, as you can probably guess, this is going to be a little bit more of an art-themed podcast, right? We've talked about level design. We've talked about netcode. We've talked about medic systems. We wanted to try something new, you know. And we pulled our artists who were very busy working on the netcode in here to talk to us about how they handle things, you know.
Yeah, they're actually kind of crying that they haven't been on yet, so...
I don't know. They'll get on in a second. First, exciting news. Grubber is a father.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, so had a little baby girl, Molly Rose, on Sunday, and haven't slept since, so yeah. This is going to be an awesome podcast.
Explains why we're doing so many takes. That's
yes.
good.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's go right into it, guys. Introduce yourselves. Talk about it. Let's go.
All right. Thanks for having me. As I said again, guys, I'm Nick, Dev Nicholai, general purpose environment artist. Do a lot of the legwork on getting these maps made after we get them from design. And then we got Zuko here also.
Yep. So what I do is I'm just another environment artist, but at the same time, I handle a lot of technical aspects of art. I'm not necessarily a tech artist, but I have enough knowledge to handle a lot of the optimization tasks and all that jazz that goes into making the game run at least pretty good on your machine.
Us less smart people call it magic.
Oh yeah, magic.
There's a lot of magic involved.
So one thing that's always been interesting to me is, especially getting into the studio and kind of watching like a map come to life, is we tend to start, and people are starting to experience this with like Intercept right now, is we start with like these really rough. I mean, we call them white boxes. I mean, they tend to be like yellow walls and random props all over the place. But I mean, like they come into like looking just like big, square, odd shaped. What the heck is that kind of stuff? And then you guys end up taking them and turning them into who knows what. I mean, like the slums went through so many iterations and that sort of thing, and so did Cold Front. And it was just interesting to see it go from that like white box where you're kind of seeing something else, and then it turned into that, like Cold Front turned into that cool little village thing. Because I saw a castle, but I see castles in just about all of our white boxes.
That's called Minecraftitis, I believe.
Yeah, probably. So,
well, Nicholai did that awesome thing where you took the 3 different phases of slums, and you could kind of see the white box to the middle to where it ended up.
Yeah.
And that was awesome, because we got to play through that.
Yeah.
Like, we lived it, but...
And it's kind of interesting when you played as much as we do, over the course of months sometimes, you kind of lose track of what it looked like when we first start off playing these things. And, designer art is there to serve a purpose, but it sure isn't pretty at all. And it's just cool to see like the before and after when it's all finally done. Definitely want to keep doing that for some of our maps. And it's really awesome that Intercept got to go out to the public as early as it did, so the people that play these maps can kind of see where they start off of, and anyone that's working on the user-made maps, making their own stuff, can kind of see you don't start off with something that's beautiful and final. You kind of got to nail down some walls, get some shapes going, figure out what you want, and then you just iterate on it from there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about Intercept, because I think we put the map out there. It's all an ugly white box. I mean, it's not ugly.
Sorry,
yeah,
Casey.
come on.
It's not ugly. It's a beautiful white box. But we put that white box out there, and then now you guys have kind of actually done some concept art, and you've actually put that out on Facebook and stuff like that. So like, tell me like, it looks completely different. It's hard to even see Intercept in that concept art. So like, what do you do to get to those points where you're just like, oh, I totally see like an old cathedral and a winery, or I don't even know what else you're putting in there.
Yeah, it's a pretty roundabout and fluid process for the most part. Generally, what we try to do is when we first start off with maps, we'd like to have a rough idea of what's going on. Red Line we knew was going to be a train station, and Slums we knew was going to be like a slightly more urbanized. Cold Front we knew was going to be more of like a little villagey type thing. With Intercept, we developed a story going into it, and sort of backed into the setting. And a lot of that's honestly just firing up Google and kind of just looking at just things, getting inspiration, just kind of thumbing through images and kind of going, well, that's cool. Would that fit? Yeah, not really. This thing's pretty cool. Yeah, we could make that work. And just sort of looking at what we get from design in terms of like where walls are put out and how things start to form out, and just kind of building a really rough idea right from the start.
Yeah, Nicholai is the Google master. I'll look over there and he just gathers like 40 images just randomly and throws it in a folder.
Oh yeah, I got gigs and gigs of just pictures of cool stuff I find online. Eventually, we like to give it to our concept guys, Davis and Jesse. They, for Intercepts in particular, they've been doing some awesome concept work, just figuring out like what these buildings might be and how they might look. Just like really rough, sketchy stuff. It's not like, the most amazing thing you've ever seen. It's really good and very helpful, though.
So what you're saying, though, is it's not so much that the art drives the map; it's that you're given the map and then you make art that fits it. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. And there's a lot of give and take too.
Yeah, it's a 2-stage process. They'll hand us stuff and we'll be like, but that wall, it makes this one pole that we really care about a little too far. Can we move that? And they'll say, yeah, I guess it doesn't ruin our sight line. So it is a lot of tug and pull from different sections, but we usually don't have too much pushback. Everybody's pretty lenient with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Are there generally like themes that is it the designers that kind of come up with these kind of like we want this is the setting, we want it in Europe, and we want it to look like it was built in the 1400s. Are there themes that you guys come up with, or designers kind of come up with that, and then how do you? Is that what drives it, or do you more just kind of find the art and then kind of develop the story along with that?
Mostly it's the art team that comes up with the visual theme for the maps. Design is just in charge mostly of making sure the map actually plays well. And once they kind of give it their stamp of approval, where it's in the phase, much like what people have seen in the version of Intercept we put out, then we take it over and then we try to figure out where is it, what time of day is it, what time of year is it, what's the just general running theme for all these kind of things. Is it new? Is it old? Is it destroyed? Is it just been built? And it's really, like I said, fluid. Every map is different. We just start making up we try to make up like a backstory, like why are we there as the army, what's the mission for this thing, what are we trying to do, and it just sort of evolves.
And design, they don't necessarily just kind of give us a blank slate. Most of the time it's usually there is a basic story there, like a truck crashed into the wall and this truck is here and we have to get this objective over to there, and so that type of thing we can work with, and then we add all the different layers that Nick talked about on top of that.
It's interesting. So I had a train of thought and I totally lost it.
Derailed.
Yeah,
Choo-choo.
totally derailed me. Tots, help me out.
Well, let's jump somewhere else. Let's talk about optimization real quick. Just since we died there.
Yeah.
Since the train has left the station.
We talk a lot in the forums about optimization. We hear a lot of people having problems, and the problem with that is it could be Grubber's netcode. It could be there's so many things that could be causing whatever problem you are experiencing. Your hardware, your internet connection, our server. It's endless. But one very important thing is map optimization, because if a map runs like badly, it's just no fun, And there are people who, with our new maps, they are struggling to play them, not because our maps are not optimized well, but because we've had very simple, very small these training maps, not a lot to them, right? And now we've got this giant open, and the sight lines on cold front and everything you can see. It's more demanding, but it's also 2014. So you have to expect to have a computer that can run it. But reeling this back in, talk about optimization. What's the process? Because you design it, right? And we'll play them internally. And then by the time you guys are ready to ship it, the map plays so much better. Things load better,
So generally what we like to do, we kind of keep a good eye on it as we're going, but just so that we can get the most bang for our buck at the end and not have to go to some crazy methods, we like to keep the optimization as minimal as possible until the map is in the almost shipping phase, because then there we can say, okay, we can assess all the different issues that happen with this map, the performance-wise and all that, and then we can say, okay, well, let's chop out this section, and if it runs better from that and it runs good from that, then we can stop there, and we don't have to take all the extra steps. So a lot of that is a step process that just has so many different factors into it. There's mesh count, triangle count, all these different things. So I'm not entirely sure where to start, but
yeah, it's tough because, like you said, I mean, there is so much.
Yeah.
You're obviously the expert, of the two of us here, but just coming into it from the outside, you think there's like one or two things that affect performance. It's like, oh, there's too many textures or there's too many triangles, but every game engine handles the assets you put in it so differently. The layout of the map can just dramatically change how it runs. The number of actors versus the number of triangles per actor, and I mean, there's just so much stuff that goes into it. Yeah. It's mind-boggling.
Most of it is definitely has to do with how many meshes are in the scene, how many actors, and just how the system is figuring out which actors to draw. Because if there's an actor in front of another one, it says, all right, the ones behind it, they shouldn't be on your screen, because obviously you don't want to have all that memory and intensive CPU blah 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 on your screen at that time. And the issue behind that is if you say you get like 2,000 meshes in that system behind that one mesh, it can start bogging down the entire game. And that's the middle ground that we have to figure out. We have to figure out what's the actual issue at the time, and there's so many things. So
what you're saying is it's not as simple as this map runs badly, there should be lower res textures. This map runs badly, there should be less paper blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's never just
Especially
a thing, right?
With the way that we make our maps too, it's usually a little bit of every category at the end too. Mm-hmm. It's never. Maybe there's a few times where maybe one mesh is duplicated 50,000 times on itself, and we're like, yeah, all right, runs great. So, it's always just one of everything.
Yeah, and it's something that's kind of inherent to a lot of multiplayer stuff. Also, I've seen people commenting that they can run single player games way better than they can run our game, and a lot of that is with the single player games. It's basically you're being led down a tunnel along the plot of the game. The developers have a lot more control over what you do or don't see at any given time, whereas we have to create a big play space that anybody can see at any time.
Yeah.
And it just inherently doing a large area like that is just a little bit more tricky than a small space.
Tots just dropped his phone.
He totally did.
It's also interesting because there's totally we get a lot of like stuff about oh, why do we have all these little objects? Why do we have all this stuff in the background? Why do we have all this all these environments, can I just get the white box and can we play that?
I do remember.
I don't think that's what they're saying, but I mean
There was an actual post on the forums that was like, if you turn off the background, the game runs amazing, and it's not as simple as that. I mean, as an artist, we want you to be we want you to feel like you're in a place. If you turn off the background, you're just kind of in this world, but there's nothing there. Especially on the training ground maps, you're in a plywood fortress. This background is something that kind of helps the immersion instead of everything being plywood.
I think a lot of the confusion is people get into free cam and they'll fly into, because if you fly far enough in some of these training maps, you can actually see a lot of the other map. But the thing is, when you're playing, that's not loaded. You're not seeing that, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. So yes, it's
all that
there,
stuff
but it's
out.
not running for you. So yeah, like you said, it's.
The overall impact of our backgrounds is negligible compared to what we actually try to do in play space. It's just that little kind of cream on the top we can do to.
There's so much detail that's in the play space and compared to the background, especially with just actor count in general.
Well, real quick, let's cover a forums topic if we can before we have to go.
Okay.
Bushes this week in the forums. A lot of people are not happy with bushes. The fact that you can just get in there and hide. And that there's no real way to counter it other than to spam spot or something like that. And some of the theories and things that are being suggested is block the middle of the bush. You can't get all the way in. Or go full physics with the bush, and you can see it moving if a guy's in there. And neither of those are good answers. Yeah. As an artist, just off the top of your head, how would you fix the bush issue? Nick, go.
It's so hard because they're just, like you said, there is no real singular good answer. I personally would be of the mindset of, let's give the main stock collision. So you can kind of crawl through the bush, but you can't just sit there and camp inside of it the entire time. But that does kind of open up a can of worms on possible other bugs with, people finding a way to somehow exploit it.
Yeah, Zuko? I'm under the impression that there's a reason why you can go through the bush, and that's the exact reason why is we've tried having collision on the actual branch. It is awful, and you get stuck. The system, you can step on the branch, you can float on the bush and jump on the bush and jump around. So it's the biggest they're the easiest way, and probably the best way to handle it is just to have people in the bush.
Yeah, the poster originally, I think he was suggesting putting like a blocker in the middle of the bush, allowing you to sit in the bushes, just not be like fully immersed in a bush, so that you're barely even visible, if at all. And I think that's a possibility.
But by the time we've created this, and you've made it, and I've tested it, and it's gone out to the betas, and they've tested it, we found the bugs, we fixed the bugs, we're talking like a man-week worth of hours, right, for a bush.
Yeah.
Where that time could have been spent on so many things that are honestly just more important. I mean, the bush thing is a mild annoyance, but in your day-to-day play, I don't run into it. And I play on the pubs. You know,
I consider it a minor optimization that we can make later to the game. And like you guys were saying earlier about optimizations, it's kind of just something you do towards the end of a process. Like, we are still in this beta. We kind of just, you know, like, we're making an optimization pass in the code right now, but just because we've been, you know, putting so many features in the game. But I mean, like, in the art process, it's like it's something you kind of do towards the end, kind of put on the final polishing touches.
Well, guys, tune in next week. We're going to have part 2 of our art discussion with Nick and Zuko. Guys, say goodbye.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for playing.
Bye-bye. Love you.